The last stand. The alien girl pressed her back against the cold wall of the ruined corridor. Her chest rose and fell in short gasps, each breath scraping her throat like broken glass. The smoke of battle still filled the air, carrying the bitter smell of burned metal and blood. She had run for hours, but her legs trembled now, barely able to hold her weight. Her people were gone, her home destroyed, her destiny sealed. This was the end, and she knew it. The echo of boots rang down the hall, heavy and steady, not the light steps of her own kind, but the hard march of human soldiers. Their voices carried through the smoke, calm, cold, and sure. They were hunters who knew their prey was trapped. She clutched the broken shard of her blade, though she knew it was useless. Her hand shook, not from the weapon's weight, but from the fear in her heart. She whispered to herself, a promise she had made to her fallen brothers. I will not beg. The light of a lamp cut through the haze. A beam of white swept across the floor. Growing closer, she shut her eyes for a second, praying the end would be fast. The stories of human cruelty were burned into her mind. Prisoners never lived long. Mercy was not in their nature, or so she believed. A shadow fell over her. When she opened her eyes, she saw him. A human soldier stood just a few feet away, his weapon raised. The armor he wore was blackened with soot, but his stance was firm. His visor reflected the faint glow of the fires. Hiding his eyes, one finger curled on the trigger, steady and ready. She lifted her shard in defiance, even though she could not fight. Her body swayed, her strength fading, but her spirit refused to bow. Do it, she whispered, her voice hoarse. The human did not move. His weapon stayed aimed at her chest, but he hesitated behind him. Distant shouts called out. His squad was searching. He had only seconds to act. One pull of the trigger, and it would all be over. But instead of firing, he lowered the gun just slightly. It was not much, yet it was enough to shake her. Her heart pounded in confusion. Why would he stop? Why delay the kill? Every story she had been told about humans said they were ruthless, but in that moment she saw something else in his posture. Not cruelty, not rage, something softer, harder to name. She thought it might be doubt. The soldier took one step closer. She stiffened, ready for pain. Instead, his voice came low and steady. Put the blade down. She blinked at the sound. It was the first human word spoken directly to her. Not a command barked in rage, not an insult, but quiet, even, almost gentle. Her hand trembled harder. She wanted to throw the shard aside, but fear chained her body. She had survived by never trusting an enemy, and humans were always the enemy. Still, his voice stirred something inside her, something she had not felt since her world was burned. Hope. The shouts behind him grew louder. Other soldiers were closing in. She could hear their boots striking metal, drawing nearer. He glanced over his shoulder, then back at her. Urgency flashed in his stance. He lowered his weapon fully and reached out a hand. Come with me, he said. The words stunned her more than any wound could. Her knees nearly buckled. She stared at him, trying to understand. Why would a human soldier, sworn to destroy her kind, offer escape? Why risk his life for hers? Her voice cracked. Why? There was no time for answers. The other soldiers were only seconds away. He moved closer, his hand still outstretched. Trust me, he urged. Two simple words, heavy with meaning. She swallowed hard, her throat dry, her blade slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. The sound echoed in the ruined hall like a surrender. The soldier grabbed her wrist, pulling her forward. His grip was strong, but not cruel. She stumbled after him, her mind racing faster than her steps. Every part of her screamed that this was a trick, that mercy was a lie. And yet, for the first time since the war began, she chose to believe. Together they vanished into the smoke. Behind them, voices shouted in anger. The squad had arrived, too late. The alien girl's last stand had become something else entirely. Not her end, but her beginning. She did not know why the human spared her. She did not know where he would take her. But deep in her heart, she felt the spark of a truth that terrified and thrilled her. Her story was not over, it had only just begun. The silent escape. The alien girl stumbled as the human pulled her through the smoke-filled corridor. Her body was weak, her lungs burned, and every step felt like falling. But the soldier's grip on her wrist was steady, guiding her, refusing to let her collapse behind them. Angry voices echoed. His squad had discovered her missing. The sound of boots striking the floor grew louder, closer. She had no strength left, yet he forced her forward. "Quiet," he whispered. "They can't find us." They slipped into a side passage, one she had thought was blocked. Metal debris lay across the entrance, but he kicked it aside. With practiced speed, she followed, half dragged, half stumbling, until they reached a narrow stairwell. The place was dark, the air thick with dust. He pushed her gently against the wall and pressed a finger to his visor. "Not a sound," he ordered in a low voice. Then he crouched near the stairwell's edge, listening. The voices above grew sharper, commands being shouted. Search parties were spreading. Her heart thudded like a drum. Every instinct told her to run, yet she stayed still. The shard of her blade was gone, her body too broken to fight. The only strange safety she had now was the man who should have killed her. She watched his armor glint faintly in the gloom. It was scarred and burned, but solid. Every movement he made was deliberate, controlled. He was a warrior, no doubt, but he had chosen not to be her executioner, and that choice left her mind tangled with fear and questions. At last, the sounds of boots moved past, fading. The soldier leaned back, exhaling slowly. He looked at her for the first time, not as prey, but as a person. "Can you walk?" he asked. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Her throat was raw, her voice broken. Instead, she nodded weakly. He extended his hand again, and after a pause, she placed her trembling fingers into his glove. This time, his grip was not forceful, but supportive. Together they crept down the stairs, each step a whisper. The silence pressed around them, broken only by the creak of metal and the distant roar of battle far above. They reached an old storage bay, abandoned and littered with rusted crates. "Here." He finally released her wrist. He scanned the shadows, then activated a small device on his wrist. A faint blue map flickered to life. A schematic of the base. She leaned against a crate, her legs shaking, her eyes fixed on the glowing lines of human technology. She had seen her people's maps, rough and organic. This was precise, efficient, exact. Everything about humans was sharp and dangerous. Yet, this one had saved her. Why? She finally forced the word out, her voice no more than a rasp. The soldier turned his helmet slightly toward her but said nothing. For a moment she thought he would ignore her question. Then his voice came low and tense. "Not all enemies deserve death." The word struck her like a blade, but not a cruel one. Her people had taught her that humans had no mercy, but this man's actions shattered that belief. Before she could speak again, the distant thud of boots echoed once more. The soldiers were sweeping the lower levels. He cursed under his breath and grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a row of crates. "Stay down," he hissed. Two beams of light cut across the bay as patrols entered. Her breath caught in her chest. Every muscle in her body screamed to flee, but his hand pressed lightly against her shoulder, steadying her. "Trust me," he whispered again. They crouched together in the shadows as the soldiers passed. Her mind raced with fear. If they were discovered, she knew what would happen. He would be called a traitor. She would be executed without question. And yet he stayed still, calm, unshaken. Even in danger, his presence felt like a shield. Minutes stretched like hours until the patrol finally moved on. When silence returned, she let out a shaky breath. He stood slowly, scanning the bay again. "We don't have long," he said. "There's a maintenance shaft leading outside, but it's dangerous." She pushed herself upright, leaning on the crate for support. Her legs wobbled, but she nodded. "What choice do we have?" she asked softly. His visor turned toward her, and though she could not see his eyes, she felt his answer in the silence. There was no other choice. He led her toward the far wall where a hatch lay hidden under debris. Together they pulled it, Free, the metal groaning loudly. Her heart froze at the sound, but no voices followed. He opened the hatch, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. The smell of oil and rust poured out. It was narrow, suffocating, but it promised escape. Go, he urged. She hesitated at the edge, staring into the darkness. Her whole life she had been taught that humans were monsters. Now one was guiding her into shadows to save her. It was madness. Yet somehow she stepped inside. He followed close behind, sealing the hatch above them. The tunnel swallowed them in silence. Only their breaths remained, echoing faintly in the dark. Each crawl forward was heavy, each sound a threat. But the strange truth filled her mind. The human had spared her life, and now he risked everything to keep her alive. She did not know his name, she did not know his reason, but she knew this. Her fate was now bound to his, and there was no turning back. A fragile trust. The tunnel stretched on like a throat of steel. Every crawl felt endless, and the alien girl's arms shook with exhaustion. Her knees scraped against rusted metal, each sound louder than thunder in her ears. The soldier behind her moved with steady patience, his armor clinking softly. Even in the darkness, his presence pressed close, guiding her forward. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the rhythm of their breaths. At last, faint light shimmered ahead, a pale glow leaking through a grated panel. The girl pushed herself toward it and collapsed against the edge. Her chest heaved, her face damp with sweat. The soldier slid beside her and studied the grate. "We're near the outer docks," he whispered. "If we're lucky, no one will notice us." She tilted her head, staring at him in the dim glow. His visor reflected her weary face back at her. She wanted to ask again, why help her? Why risk his life for someone like her? But fear of breaking the silence kept her lips shut. He raised his weapon and pressed it against the grate. With a controlled burst, the bolts snapped free. The panel clattered down, and cool air swept in. It smelled of fuel and ocean, freedom and danger mixed together. He motioned for her to climb out first. Her fingers hesitated on the rim, but his voice came low, steady. "Go, I'm right behind you." She slipped out and landed softly on the dock's shadowed floor. The bay stretched wide, filled with massive cargo haulers and patrol ships. Engines hummed faintly, and distant guards walked their rounds. Her heart pounded with each step she took. Then the soldier joined her, crouched low, scanning the area. "This way," he said, guiding her toward the far side. They moved between crates taller than houses. The dim light painted their shadows long across the metal floor. Each time a patrol passed, they froze. Her breath caught tight in her throat. Every second felt like the end. But the soldier always waited, always signaled her when it was safe. His calm steadiness began to chip away at her terror. Bit by bit, she felt something impossible. Trust. At one point, they ducked into the shelter of a container. She pressed her back against the wall, sliding down until she sat. Her legs trembled, too weak to carry her further. The soldier knelt across from her, silent. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of ships. Finally, she gathered her courage. "Why didn't you kill me?" The question cracked the air like lightning. His visor tilted toward her, but no answer came at once. Her eyes burned as she whispered, "My people said humans have no mercy. You burn, you conquer, you destroy, so why? Why me?" For several heartbeats he said nothing. Then his voice came low, almost like he was speaking to himself. "Because I've seen enough death." The word struck deep into her chest. She studied him, searching for cruelty or trickery, but all she heard was weariness. Not the weariness of weakness, but of a man carrying too many ghosts. He reached up, pressing a hand to his helmet. The visor shifted with a faint click, revealing his eyes for the first time. They were not the eyes of a monster, not cold, not empty, but human, tired, scarred, and alive. The sight stole her breath. She had imagined hate, imagined cruelty. Instead, she saw something she did not expect. Compassion? I don't understand. she admitted. Her voice trembled, with fear and something else, hope. You don't have to, he replied. Just stay alive. The sound of boots echoed again. Guards were approaching the dock, their lamps cutting through the shadows. The soldier snapped his visor back into place and motioned for her to move. Her body screamed with exhaustion, but she pushed herself up, following him once more. Her fragile trust bound her steps to his. They crawled beneath a massive fuel line, slid through gaps between cargo stacks. Every second was a knife's edge. Once, a guard's light passed so close she felt its warmth on her face. Her heart nearly stopped. But the soldier's steady hand on her shoulder kept her grounded. Not yet, he whispered. Only when the guard turned away did he guide her forward. Finally, they reached a maintenance hatch at the dock's far end. It led to the service tunnels outside the base. Freedom was so close she could almost taste it. But as he reached for the hatch, alarms suddenly blared across the dock, red lights flashed, sirens wailed, unauthorized breach detected. A voice roared over speakers. Her stomach dropped. They had been discovered. The soldier swore under his breath and pulled her close. His grip was firm but protective. Stay with me, he said. Her trust was fragile as glass. But in that storm of alarms with death chasing their heels, she held on tighter than ever, pursued by shadows. The dock lit up in red as the alarm screamed through the steel walls. The alien girl's heart slammed against her ribs, louder than the sirens themselves. Her eyes darted toward the patrol ships, the guards, the flashing lights. Every shadow became a threat. Every sound a promise of death. Beside her, the soldier tightened his grip on her arm, pulling her close to the hatch. They know we're here, he said firmly. We have to move now. He ripped the hatch open with a metallic groan. The tunnel beyond was narrow, its air thick with rust and oil. Without hesitation, he pushed her inside, following quickly. Behind, the hatch slammed shut just as shouts filled the dock. Guards swarmed the floor, searching. Seal the exits. Someone barked. They can't escape the sector. The girl crawled fast, her hands slipping against the metal. The tunnel seemed endless, twisting deeper into darkness. Behind her, the soldier moved with careful precision. Every few seconds, he glanced back, listening for pursuit, but the alarms followed them, echoing even through the steel. They'll track us, she whispered. They'll know where we go. Then we stay ahead of them, he answered. His voice was steady but tight with urgency. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into 3 paths. The soldier paused, pulling up his wrist device. A dim map flickered, showing the base layout. He muttered under his breath. South exit, but it's heavily guarded. Her throat tightened, fear surging in her chest. There's no way out, is there? She asked. His visor turned toward her, and though she couldn't see his eyes, his reply was certain. There's always a way. He chose the left path, guiding her forward. The air grew colder, the tunnel dipping lower. Water dripped from above, each drop echoing like a drum. Every sound magnified her fear. She stumbled, her body weak, but he caught her before she fell, his arm wrapped around her, strong and steady. For a moment, she leaned into him. Her mind screamed that trusting a human was madness, but her heart clung to the safety he gave. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Pipes lined the walls, steam hissing from cracks. In the center stood a rusted platform with ladders leading up and down. The soldier scanned it quickly, then motioned. Up now. Her legs shook, but she climbed, her fingers slipping on the rungs. Below, the faint echo of boots carried through the tunnels. The soldiers were close, hunting them like wolves. At the top, they found a grated walkway stretching into shadow. The soldier urged her forward, moving quickly. Every step rattled the metal. Beneath their feet, her stomach twisted with dread. One wrong sound, one careless move, and the hunters would find them. Halfway across, the girl froze. Voices rose below. Human soldiers sweeping the lower tunnels. She pressed her hands against the grate, her breath held. The soldier crouched low beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. Keep moving, he whispered. His calm steadiness was like a shield against the storm in her chest. They reached the far end of the walkway, where another hatch waited. The soldier forced it open, pulling her inside just as flashlights cut through the chamber below. Shouts rang out, "They're here! Move!" Gunfire rattled the air, bullets sparking against metal. The girl cried out as shards rained down, but the soldier shielded her with his body, guiding her deeper into the next tunnel. His voice stayed firm even under fire. "Run, don't stop!" Her legs carried her faster than she thought possible. The tunnel sloped upward, light spilling faintly from the far end. Hope surged in her chest. Maybe freedom lay just beyond. But heavy boots pounded behind them. Closing the distance, the hunters were relentless. The soldier glanced back, his weapon raised. He fired short bursts, the blasts lighting the tunnel with sharp flashes. The pursuers fell back for a moment, but more followed. "They won't stop," she whispered in terror. "They'll kill us both." "Not if I can help it," he growled. They burst from the tunnel into open night. Cold air struck her face, carrying the scent of salt and rain. Before them stretched a vast landing field, ships scattered like giants at rest. The sky above was heavy with storm clouds, lightning flickering in the distance. For one brief heartbeat, the girl felt awe. Freedom was right there, but searchlights snapped on, sweeping the field. Sirens wailed louder. "There they are." Voices roared from behind. Spotlights locked onto them bright as suns. The soldier grabbed her hand and pulled her into a sprint. Gunfire erupted, tearing across the landing field. Explosions flared as shots struck nearby fuel tanks. Flames licked the sky, smoke billowing. The world became chaos, shadows, fire, and thunder. But still he pulled her forward, never letting go. Through the storm of violence, she clung to his hand. Her trust was no longer fragile. It was survival. They dove behind a grounded shuttle, panting. The soldier pressed his back against the hull, reloading quickly. His visor tilted toward her. "We can't outrun them much longer," he said. Her chest heaved, her voice shaking. "Then what do we do?" He looked at her, silent for a heartbeat, then answered with words that both terrified and comforted her. "We make a stand." Secrets revealed. The soldier pressed his back against the shuttle's hull as bullets sparked across the metal. The alien girl crouched beside him, her breath ragged, her eyes wide with fear. Flames burned across the landing field, painting the night sky red. Every sound was chaos. Shouts, alarms, the thunder of weapons. And yet in that storm, there was only the two of them alone against the world. "They won't stop," she whispered, clutching her chest. "They'll hunt us until we're dead." He glanced at her through his visor, silent for a moment. Then his voice came low and steady. "Then we survive long enough to change the ending." He leaned out, firing short bursts into the shadows. Soldiers scattered, shouting as his shots forced them back. Then he ducked down again, reloading quickly. The girl's body trembled, but her eyes stayed fixed on him. She saw how precise he was, how calm. This was not luck. This was skill sharpened by pain. "You fight like a man who's lost too much," she whispered before she could stop herself. His hand stilled for a second on the weapon. When he spoke, his voice was heavier. "You're not wrong." For the first time since she met him, he didn't sound like a soldier. He sounded like someone carrying a weight he could never put down. A blast shook the ground, throwing sparks across the shuttle's hull. The girl flinched, curling into herself. Memories stabbed her mind, her world burning, her people screaming. She shook her head hard, trying to push them away. But the soldier's voice cut through the fear. "Stay with me," he said firmly. "Don't let the past take you," her chest tightened. "No, you don't understand," she cried softly. "My people, they're gone. I watched the fire consume them. I was supposed to die with them, but I ran." Tears streaked her dirt-stained face. "I wasn't brave. I wasn't strong. I was just afraid." He looked at her for a long moment, his visor hiding, his expression. Then he reached up and pulled it free. The human face revealed was rough, scarred and lined with exhaustion, but his eyes held no judgment, only a heavy truth. "You survived," he said. "Don't ever mistake that for weakness. The dead are gone, but the living still matter." She stared at him, stunned. Her whole life she had been told humans were merciless, But here was one looking at her not as an enemy, not as prey, but as someone worth saving. Her chest ached with something she could not name. It was more painful than fear, and yet warmer than hope. Another barrage struck the shuttle, sparks raining. Down. The soldier snapped his visor back on and crouched low. "They're regrouping," he said. "They'll push harder this time." Her voice trembled. "Why? Why risk everything for me? Your people will call you a traitor. They'll kill you too." He hesitated, his weapon gripped tight. For a moment she thought he would stay silent, but finally he answered, "Because I know what it's like to lose everything." Her breath caught. He continued, voice rough. "My family, they burned too. Different war, different world. I was the only one left, and no one spared us." The weight of his words crushed her chest. She saw it now, not just a soldier, but a man scarred by the same fire that had scarred her. Their stories were mirrors, twisted but the same. Her lips trembled. "You carry their ghosts," she whispered. He nodded once, slow. "Every day. But saving you, maybe it means I don't carry them alone." For a moment the world outside faded. The shouting, the gunfire, the flames. There was only the two of them, an alien girl who thought her end had come, and a human who had chosen mercy instead of hate. The sound of a loudspeaker shattered the moment. "Drop your weapons and surrender." A commander's voice roared across the field. "You are surrounded. There is no escape." The girl's blood ran cold. She turned to the soldier, fear rising again. "There's too many," she whispered. "They'll kill us both." He steadied, his weapon, his stance unshaken. "Then they'll have to fight for it," he said. The firelight reflected in his visor made him look like a figure carved from steel, but she could feel the truth beneath it. He was not fighting for orders anymore. He was fighting for her. Her fingers curled into fists. Her fear did not vanish, but something stronger rose beside it. For the first time since the war began, she did not feel entirely alone. If this was the end, at least it would not be silent. At least it would not be without meaning. The soldier glanced at her one last time. "Stay close to me," he said. She nodded, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. "Always." And together, they rose from behind the shuttle as the enemy closed in, their pasts heavy, their secrets revealed, but for the first time their futures tied together. The breaking point. The night sky thundered with gunfire. The soldier and the alien girl pressed against the shuttle, their backs to steel, their faces to fire. Searchlights swept across the landing field, cutting the shadows into sharp lines. Dozens of armed men closed in from every side, their weapons raised, their voices shouting commands. "Drop your gun, hands on your head." The human soldier tightened his grip on his weapon instead. His stance said everything. He would not surrender. The alien girl's heart pounded, her throat dry. She looked at him, fear swirling in her chest. "They're your people," she whispered. "They'll forgive you if you give me up." Her words trembled, but deep down she already knew his answer. He turned his visor toward her, and though she couldn't see his eyes, his voice was iron. "No, I won't hand you over." The words shook her more than the gunfire. For so long she believed humans were incapable of mercy. Yet this one stood ready to betray his own command. For her it made no sense, and yet it felt more real than anything she had ever known. A loudspeaker boomed across the field. "Soldier, stand down. You are ordered to surrender the hostile. This is your last warning." The voices of his comrades echoed behind the command, men he had trained with, bled with, trusted, now their rifles aimed at him. If he chose her, he chose against them. His chest rose and fell slowly. He had been here before, forced to watch family taken by fire. Powerless, he would not repeat that mistake. Not this time. The girl grabbed his arm, her voice breaking. "They'll kill you, please don't do this for me." He glanced at her, silent for a heartbeat. Then he spoke words she would never forget. "This isn't just for you, it's for what's left of me." Before she could reply, gunfire erupted. The squad advanced, bullets slicing sparks across the shuttle. The soldier dragged her down, returning fire in controlled bursts. Each shot drove their attackers back, but there were too many. The air filled with smoke and screams. The landing field became a storm of death. They scrambled across the wreckage, diving behind a stack of fuel barrels. The soldier reloaded quickly, sweat running down his temples beneath the helmet. The girl pressed against the barrel, her hands shaking. "They'll keep coming," she whispered. "There's no end to them." He checked the chamber of his rifle, his voice calm but firm. "Then we hold until we can't." But fate had sharper teeth as they crouched in the shadows. A beam of light cut across their hiding place. "Over here!" a soldier shouted. Within seconds they were surrounded, rifles aimed from every angle. The squad closed in, eyes cold behind their visors. "Stand down," barked the commander. "You're finished. Drop the weapon and step aside." The alien girl's heart collapsed. This was the end. She could see it in their eyes. There was no way out. She turned to the soldier, her voice trembling. "They'll shoot you, please, just let me go." The commander raised his hand, ready to signal the kill order. The soldier's grip on his rifle tightened, then slowly, he lowered it. For a second, the girl thought he had given in. Her stomach dropped in despair. But instead of stepping aside, he placed himself in front of her, shielding her with his body. His voice rang out like steel. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." A stunned silence spread across the squad. The commander's visor glared at him. "You've lost your mind, soldier. She's the enemy. She killed our people, and you protect her?" The soldier's chest rose, his voice unshaken. "She's not the enemy anymore." Every word landed like thunder. "She's a survivor, just like us, and I won't let you murder her for revenge." The squad hesitated, rifles wavering. The commander's hand trembled with fury. "You're betraying everything we fight for," he snarled. The soldier met his glare without flinching. "No, I'm remembering why we fight at all." The moment stretched razor thin. One wrong move and the field would be painted in blood. The alien girl's breath caught in her chest. Her life balanced on the edge of a human's choice. For the first time since her world burned, she felt something she never expected to feel again. She felt protected. The commander's hand rose again, ready to give the final order. But before the words could leave his lips, a deafening explosion ripped through the far side of the field. A fuel tank had erupted, flames roaring into the night. The shockwave threw soldiers off their feet, scattering the formation. The soldier grabbed the girl's hand instantly, pulling her into the chaos. "Move!" he shouted. Together they sprinted through fire and shadow, weaving past falling debris and blinded soldiers. The alarms screamed louder, searchlights swung wildly, but in the storm of confusion, they vanished into the smoke. Behind them, the commander's furious voice roared over the fire. "This isn't over. They won't escape." But for now they had. The soldier and the alien girl disappeared into the burning night, their path uncertain, their bond unbreakable. The breaking point had come and been crossed. Mercy's legacy. Smoke swallowed the night as the alien girl and the soldier ran. Through the wreckage, flames roared high behind them, painting their shadows across the broken landing field. The alarm still screamed. Soldiers shouted through the chaos, but confusion ruled the air. The explosion had torn order apart, and for the first time they had a chance. The girl's lungs burned as she struggled to keep pace. Her legs trembled, each step heavy as stone. She would have collapsed if not for the soldier's grip pulling her forward. His strength never faltered, his voice cutting through the storm. "Almost there. Keep going." Ahead, a small service tunnel opened beneath the wreckage of a collapsed hangar. The soldier pushed her, inside first, ducking in after her. The sounds of pursuit faded slightly, muffled by layers of twisted metal above. The tunnel was dark, dripping with rainwater leaking from broken pipes. They moved through it quickly, their footsteps echoing on the steel floor. At last, they stumbled out onto open ground beyond the base perimeter. The air was cold, carrying the scent of wet earth instead of smoke and fire. For the first time since the night began, the girl tasted freedom. She collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her body shook from exhaustion and shock, but she was alive. The soldier knelt beside her, scanning the horizon. Far in the distance, the glow of cities burned faintly. Behind them, the base burned brighter, alarms echoing into the night. "They won't stop," he said quietly. "They'll send patrols, maybe even ships." His voice was calm, but his shoulders carried the weight of what he had done. The girl turned her eyes toward him. "You can still go back," she whispered. "You can tell them I escaped. They'll forgive you if you abandon me." Her voice shook as she spoke. Part of her wanted him to choose safety, because she could not bear to see him destroyed for her sake. But he shook his head slowly. "There's no going back for me." His eyes, tired yet fierce, locked with hers. "I made my choice the moment I lowered my weapon, and I don't regret it." Her chest tightened, her throat aching. "You gave me mercy when I had nothing left. Why?" she asked again, her voice breaking. He was silent for a long time, his gaze drifting to the dark sky. Finally, he answered, "Because mercy is what makes us human. Without it, we're nothing but machines of war." Tears blurred her vision. No one from her world would have believed these words. No one would have believed that a human could spare her, protect her, fight for her, and yet it had happened. She reached for his hand, her own trembling. "You've given me more than mercy," she whispered. "You've given me a future I thought I'd never see." He clasped her hand firmly. And, in that simple touch, there was an unspoken vow. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The night did not grant them peace for long. The distant roar of engines cut through the silence. Searchlights swept across the hills as dropships scoured the land. The soldier's grip on her hand tightened. "They're close. We have to move." They ran again, slipping through gullies and broken ridges. The rain began to fall, soaking them both, but the storm gave cover, hiding them from the searchlights above. The girl stumbled often, her strength nearly gone. Each time the soldier pulled her up without hesitation. "Stay with me," he urged, and each time she found the will to take another step. Hours seemed to pass before they reached the ruins of an old watchtower. Its stones crumbled, vines clawing through cracks. Here they collapsed beneath its shelter, hidden from the sky. For the first time, silence returned, broken only by the patter of rain. The girl curled against the wall, exhaustion pulling at her eyes. The soldier sat nearby, his weapon across his knees. He kept watch, but his gaze drifted toward her more often than the horizon. She felt it, and though her body ached, warmth filled her chest. This man, who should have been her executioner, was now her protector. Her heart whispered something dangerous, something she had not dared feel since her world was taken. Hope. "Do you think they'll ever stop chasing us?" she asked softly. The soldier's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the rain-soaked darkness. "Not for a long time, but maybe we can show them something they've forgotten." She frowned, confused. "Show them what?" He looked at her, and his answer came with a weight that sank into her soul. "That mercy is stronger than hate." Her breath caught. The words sounded impossible, and yet he had already proven them true. By sparing her, he had begun something larger than either of them, a spark that could change everything. The girl leaned her head back against the cold stone. Her body finally gave in, pulling her into restless sleep. The soldier stayed awake, guarding her through the night. The rain fell steady, washing the blood and smoke from their skin. And though the world outside still burned, here in the ruins, something new was born, not the end of a war, but the beginning of a legacy. A legacy built not on conquest or vengeance, but on one human's choice to show mercy where none was expected, and one alien girl who would carry that mercy forward. Together they would defy the darkness. Together they would remind the galaxy what it meant to be truly human.